you know, it was, you know, Monte Carlo syndrome. Basically, it's kind of, you know, it's got to go further up. But then I started going like that, and I said, ow. So
Ow.
what happened when I did that jam in that day, when I jammed the knuckle, I also probably snapped the wrist in there right too. So it really hurts right there. So as we're talking about I'm Monty's back scratcher, folks. And I've got a broken wrist, actually a fractured wrist, and it irritates my wrist, but she doesn't care.
Why would Monty care?
Monty's, because I'm Monty's back scratcher.
All she cares is that you give her a back.
Yeah, Monty is, you know, she's Her Royal Highness Montavious Bubulus. So, which leads us into the fact that I'm OCAM,
And this is not a spring chicken. Today we're going to be talking about,
the royal wedding. We're going to be talking about the royal wedding a lot.
well, you know, and part of it is our coverage is going to be different than anywhere else
And we got
for multiple reasons.
Oh, we got a person who's actually going to the wedding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we got, so we're also finding out that it's the biggest god-awful boon. Well, okay, we put it this way. The young people that are going to the wedding have already sank 2,000 pounds this last weekend of money they don't have.
Well, and that was just to go to the parties at Trafalgar Square.
And you know, getting there, going to the party, spending, you know, well, because they found, God, everything was overpriced.
Well, you know, part of it is, well, you know, just like if you go to a major event here in the United States, you know that parking's going to be especially expensive. For example, if it's usually $10, it's going to be $30 or $50, right, for special event parking.
Well, they hadn't given thought to the fact that the security in the city is sort of like that, and they basically had to stop, you know, because what they do is they ride in England they have really a great rail system. They rode in on the rail system, you know, dressed to go to a party.
Yeah.
And then when they had to get off the rail system because, you know, for security reasons, just like you can't go get, you know, a regular, you know, trolley and get in, you know, the little cab. You have to get into something that you know is, you know, nice and clean because, you know.
Well, first of all, the dress is bigger,
The
larger.
dress is bigger, and the three men were all wearing, you know, brand new tuxes. So you just can't go set in an ordinary thing. You have to go set in a vehicle, first of all, designed for people that are dressed to go out.
And also they're a little on the tall side too.
Oh yeah, well, all of them are on the tall side. The smallest is 6'2", and that's the girls.
Yeah.
And she's wearing like 4-inch heels because the guys, they're 6'6" to 6'6" to 6'8".
Talk about making an entrance. You look like a basketball team walking in, probably.
Yeah, and they're all blonde. 3 are blonde haired, and 1 is a flaming redhead. So those are the girls. So they really stand out. But they hadn't counted on the fact that they had to rent. They had to go get a car, and then then they just couldn't let the car go because they had to get back from there to where the train was to go back home. So it meant they had to pay the guy all night long into the next day.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, well, you can't, okay, it's just
Because it's the non-availability of transportation.
non-availability of transportation. There's not public, you cannot wear expensive party clothes and get on a bus.
Yeah.
I mean, they're used to it on the trains. Because what you do is they also had, you know, they had to get their own room too, or their own car, you know, their, I guess their own, I don't know what they call it, little cubby hole in the thing to set in, that they also knew that had been cleaned and everything.
Oh my God.
I mean, the guys could have, what's the big deal? A guy sits down on something dirty with the black, you know, with his pants, just wipe them off. But the lady is wearing a thing that ran about 1,000 pounds.
Ouch.
And very colorful, and she's got on her stupid hat. I want pictures, they won't do it.
Oh, I would love to see the pictures.
Yeah, but they don't have the, okay, we'll put it this way. How dumb are these computer geniuses? They broke the last camera they had because they installed the little chip in backwards.
I think they should read the directions.
They don't read directions because they're geniuses. They basically graduated. They graduated.
They are
from,
relatives of you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't read the directions.
He doesn't read directions.
But I do know enough not to jam a chip in upside down.
Well, now they know they shouldn't do that the next time, so they should clip for the next
Yeah,
camera.
but it cost as much money to fix the borrow cameras as it would have been to buy it, and they're not really like most royals in England are not wealthy. They don't have any money. I mean, they sit in a place with a hole in the roof with a big tarp over the top because they don't have the funds to. They're good. They're going to spend as much money on the royal wedding as it would cost to fix the roof of the building. You see the ridiculousness of it? To go to the events and because the the two of the men don't have an invite, but one of the men does. And, you know, he's got to, you know, he has to be hauled around all the time, so. But the other guys are going along to all of the events that basically only have to wear the same suit to. The poor lady has to change her dress for every single
That's
one of
right.
them. Whereas the guys can simply walk around in a tux
Yeah.
and be perfectly acceptable unless it's a real social event, and then the little brother has to go. And I told you about the facts, folks, that only those, the very old and the people that can't get out are going. The two older brothers aren't going
That's right.
because it costs too much money. So what you do is you throw the youngest one to the wolves. You know, so he goes, but
He's representing the family.
all they did, you know, they grumped. They said everything was too costly. They said they had nothing but security problems. You know, oh, here's a good one. You know what a man takes with you when you're in a tuxedo?
What?
You take maybe a credit card and some cash and an ID.
Right.
No wallets. The woman has a little tiny purse
Right.
with maybe the same thing.
Yeah.
And so they have to go through these things. You know, they got to show this stuff. And then they said, you know, are you sure that's you? And like one of them said, it says 6'6". And he said, yes, but the other one is taller than you. Yeah, he doesn't have a driver's license because he doesn't drive.
Yeah, he's not old enough to
They
drive.
take it for granted that he, you know, and they see invitation. Well, how do we know that invitation is his invitation? Because that's his name. You know, he said, see the jacket with the royal thing on it? And he said, well, that everybody has one of those today. So they went through that for about 45 minutes.
Oh,
You know,
God.
playing 20 questions because they stood out like sore thumbs. You know, some people, okay, some people in England are like this above everybody else. That does happen, folks. You know, you know, from their side of the family, they're from the German side. They're all like that from the German side. But and then they finally got all of that done. You know, they were there because they didn't miss anything. But then they charged them for everything they did. Oh, well, what about that? Well, it's going to cost you money to go see. Okay, you know, credit card. You know, okay, you want to eat? Well, I'm sorry, we don't take that credit card, sir. But okay, which one of these cards
Oh,
works? Which one do you take? Well, we'll take that one. So they went through. By the time the night was over, they said they had everything was cold, the entertainment was lousy, everything cost too much money,
Oh.
and they blew 2,000 pounds in one night.
Ouch.
And they're not looking. And that was this weekend, and they've been doing things every night.
They probably don't even want to go to some of the other things.
No, we know it was bad enough that they knew the reason they weren't going was because they could basically scrape up enough money for the suits that the youngest brother needed and for the gowns for the lady that's on his arm, but they hadn't counted on money. Which is why, one of the reasons we're not there either, because we could get there, we didn't have the cash to pay for that person to hang around all night long.
Yeah, with the taxi.
Yeah, which we really didn't think about either, because
We didn't think-
she'd have been wearing gowns, and she'd have been wearing borrowed gowns, which meant we'd definitely had to have a chauffeured limo there all night long for a week. You know what well, they know what it costs. They know what it costs. And this way, like I said, the asinine bit of it is that they can't repair the home they're living in because they don't have the cash to do it. So they're putting more money on the credit card this week than it costs to fix the hole in the roof. So is that sensible?
I know.
Yeah.
But that is kind of, things like that happen for weddings.
Yeah.
But this wedding in particular, when they first called it a commoner's wedding, I thought, well, maybe they're trying to make it a little bit more low key because they're calling it a commoner's wedding.
Yeah.
No, actually the reason they're calling it a commoner's wedding is because
Kate Middleton is a commoner, and basically it's not. She does things that are not really approved by the people of England.
But don't they train her on the etiquette, the royal protocol?
Yeah, but she tends not to pay a whole lot of attention to it. They give her a list of 10 things she cannot do, and she does almost all of them.
Oh,
shit.
That's probably one of the reasons why there was such a change in the UK, because I know before they were really excited and they were talking about Prince William
Yeah, and now
taking the throne.
Charles's wife Camilla has stepped up to be the next king, Queen of England.
Which
She'll be a princess, but which they never wanted to have happen.
I
Never.
know. Why did they never like Camilla?
Because they didn't. Because he married Diana, and
Oh, they
people
liked
liked
Diana.
Diana. Which most of the people in the young guy's family also called her the royal twit. They said she was an airhead, a blonde airhead that had been raised to be a member of the royal family.
Well,
So,
okay.
but that was it. She was raised to marry a member of the royal family.
Mhm.
And
she did.
And she did. But Charles is basically a massive bore. That's what Camilla's a bore, and Charles is a bore.
They get along perfectly then.
Well, yeah, they're old Charles was an old fuddy-duddy when he was a teenager. So, I mean, I got to meet Charles when he was young.
Mhm.
God, he was he had the sense of humor of a wet noodle. So,
Well,
I know. It's just the fact that him and his what happened was the family got burnt by his uncle Edward marrying a commoner.
well, how did they get burnt on that?
Well, because she was divorced and a commoner, he advocated the throne, and he was the popular king. And
Why did he have to do that?
Because they didn't like the fact that he was married to a commoner.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, but how many years ago was that? Don't you think society has changed?
1930s. No, they
I don't
okay.
think society's changed. Although British society is very traditional.
They're traditional. I mean, Bill O'Reilly. I don't care. This and that and that. Well, the problem is that they really don't give a damn in England what Bill O'Reilly thinks, because
No.
it's their country. Do they come here and say, Bill O'Reilly, I don't approve of your looking down upon everybody in the country? No. Do they approve of you being a horse's ass with your nose stuck up your rear? No. So, but he does approve. He says how much he disapproves of everything that is being done over there. Well, it's none of his damn business. It really isn't important what no Americans are going to that thing basically, because they don't want the Americans there, because they know too many disapproving Americans.
Well, actually, I'm really surprised. We have the list right here.
Yeah.
I'm actually really surprised on the list about how many people are not attending.
Yeah, she was getting ready to write a piece basically having to do with that when you hold an event, it is more important who's not on the list than are on the list. Because the people that aren't on the list are not on it for a reason. They turned it down, or they were
And you're
never
thinking, how could
invited.
they turn down the invitation if they never received it?
Well, the kid's uncle turned it down because he was too damn smart. He knew it was going to happen.
Because what you do is you submit that you would like to.
You basically notify them that you would like to attend it. Then they'll send you out an invitation, and then you RSVP. And after you RSVP, then they call the list from the RSVP. 1900 is not many people, folks. I mean, there should have been thousands of people for the wedding of a next king,
But part of it is, do you think the reason they don't have as many is because why?
well, because he's not going to be the next king of England. Charles is.
Why do you think that?
Because they don't like Kate Middleton.
But that just changed like the last month. Or 2 months ago.
It's changed since because they
Hasn't it
discovered.
changed since they sent out the
Okay.
invitation?
First of all, what happened is they discovered that he noticed Kate Middleton when she was wearing a transparent outfit at a college fashion thing, and they didn't approve.
But she was
of,
in college, so
They
what?
also didn't approve of her prancing around in her underwear on the stage.
But
They-
she was
okay,
in
put it
college.
this
She
way.
just met him.
You can go. Kings and queens can fool around with anybody that they want, but doesn't mean you marry the girl on the red velvet suit on the swing, which is a famous thing in England too. Remember the royal family?
You mean like Harry's date for the wedding?
Yeah, you can go out with hookers, you can go out with anything you want, you can fool around with some guy's wife, but you don't marry them. And what happened was that William basically liked, her because he's known her for years, and then he decided, which is this way too. if you know somebody for a decade and don't do anything in that, earlier, basically you're not going to. So your assumption is basically it's sort of a contrived wedding.
Oh,
That
really?
they needed to get him married.
Why?
Because he's getting older and they needed to get him married because they saw, they don't want to have another